Hello, I'm Dan Konjorski, and this is Krystal Barbosa, and we are host of The Journey. And today we're going to continue talking about Gottman's, what do you call it? Gottman's what?
Sound relationship house.
Sound relationship house. I think you have a picture right here,
We
right?
finally put a picture up, yes, so that you
Yes.
can see the floors.
Yeah.
And today we're going to be talking about the 5th floor.
Right. The 5th level of John Gottman's sound relationship house. It's called Managing Conflict.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
And according to Gottman's research, conflict is natural. I think that's important to understand that. Conflict is natural when it comes to any relationship, even in the happiest of relationships. So even me and my employee Josh can really be happy in our conflict at the workplace. That's an inside joke. Josh is the cameraman. But how we handle it makes all the difference. Let's look at what this floor is made of and how we can strengthen it. Go ahead with it.
Yeah, so with the sound relationship house, the biggest thing is that when we have conflict, the whole point is not to avoid it. Avoiding it is what creates that perpetual problem to continue. And realizing that there are 2 types of problems. We have solvable problems, which within the name says they're solvable. The couple can definitely figure it out within themselves. And then we have perpetual problems, which is about 69% of the problems that all couples come up with are perpetual, which means there are conflicts that are never going to be resolved.
Right.
But what you have to find out is you got to find that middle ground between I'm not okay with this and this is great. And finding that middle ground that says, you know what, I might not agree with you, but I respect you enough to let this continue. I respect you enough to not let this break our relationship up any further.
I like what you said there. I respect you enough not to allow our conflict to break our relationship.
Yeah.
I like that. Also, this idea of avoiding conflict. I think a lot of times we get in trouble, even in our mental health, when we try to avoid or deny that we're angry, when we try to deny that we're conflicted, that we are depressed. All those things will get us in trouble if we deny those natural emotions or experiences.
Oh, yeah. And per Gottman's research, the majority of the conflict, and it's no offense towards men, but a lot of men struggle with the emotional aspect of conflict. So they struggle with opening up and accepting others' influence, accepting their spouse's influence. And that's just with his research. That's what it's found over the years, is that it just happens to be that men just struggle a little bit more to accept that influence. What do you think about that?
Huh?
What do you think about that?
What do I think?
You're
about
a man,
that?
so I'm curious. Do you feel that that's...
Well, my immediate response was to say, "Oh yeah."
Oh yeah. Okay.
You
Well, I
know?
thought the same thing, but it is on his research, so that's why I'm curious. You're a man, so what did you think about that?
Well, my response was, "Oh yeah." Well, let's talk about women. No,
Oh,
I'm kidding.
I think the same thing. I actually thought women would be a little bit
That's what I thought too.
more hesitant. I'm going to be honest, because for me, when I see women and myself, some of us, we can be very like gung-ho and strong-willed and strong-minded.
Right.
And so accepting that influence, sometimes we don't want to. And so that's why I thought personally that it was going to be women as well.
Right.
Yeah.
And, there's this myth that, and I think it's a myth, that women are emotional and men are logical.
Yeah.
I think that's a myth.
Yeah.
We cannot, I think it's appropriate not to make that assumption.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. And I think that a lot of our society has kind of pushed that amongst our men, our boys, that, don't show emotion. Luckily we're transitioning into another era, it seems like, where emotions are more spoke about in families and with children, and especially with our males. But it's definitely something that lingers for our current couples. The lingering of, men don't show emotion. Women are the more emotional ones,
Right. Do you think it's possible that we can be so stuck with being logical that we forget the idea of being compassion?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Being compassionate?
Yeah, being compassionate when we're being logical. Sometimes it could be very hard to mix the two, because logic doesn't have any emotion in it.
No.
It's just straight facts.
Yeah, straight facts.
And
Just the facts, ma'am.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
so where's the emotion in that? So sometimes if you're a very logical thinker, which I know my husband is,
Yeah.
we have to kind of remind yourself, hey, I'm with a person who's very emotion driven. Let me add a little emotion to that.
Right. I was grateful to meet your husband the other
Oh, yeah.
day. I really enjoyed talking to him.
Yeah,
And-
he can be very different to speak with, but I love him.
I didn't detect that.
Yeah.
I think he's willing to talk and wanting to talk
Oh,
and
yeah.
wants that relationship
Oh,
with
yeah.
anyone he's talking to, or
Oh,
that
definitely.
communication. That's how I took it.
Yeah.
And he's a very nice guy.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
So, in case you don't know, my husband be fine about sharing. My husband has autism, or what used to be called Asperger's, and so he does struggle with the emotional aspect. And so I can definitely relate to the literal minded thinking, because in the beginning of our relationship, he was very literal minded. The emotions were not there, and he had no idea how to get to that, to show emotion. And
Right.
that's definitely my language. And so it's taken time for him to go, okay, here's a logical aspect of the situation, and let me
Yeah.
add a little bit of emotion that I hear you, or I see you and I see your emotions.
So he recognizes your emotions.
Yeah.
Oh,
But
okay.
only now that after many, many years of practice, it's like we tell our couples, it doesn't happen overnight. It takes lots and lots of
Well,
practice.
of course it does. My wife and I have been married for 36 years, and we're just getting into the idea that it's okay to disagree. I mean, after 36 years, I just need her to understand that my way's the right way.
And
right?
I bet she feels the same way.
She probably, knowing her, and she is a firstborn, and I'm a firstborn.
Oh.
So you got the roles,
Yeah.
the
Both very
birth
strong-willed.
order roles, right?
Oh, yeah.
And firstborns argue for control or fight for control.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So
Well, that kind of takes us great to the next part that we're going to talk about, is how to manage our conflict. So what are the different tools we can do? What are different ideas that we can have while we're having those conversations to ensure they don't spiral down the wrong direction?
right.
And one of the biggest ones, the first ones, and we've talked about a little bit before, is how we start a conversation.
Right.
So you either have a soft startup, which is a nice way to start it, or a harsh startup, which is it's automatically going to put your partner in the defensive.
I just had a thought here.
Yeah.
And that's dangerous for me to have a thought.
No, I love it.
Josh would agree. Dan, stop thinking. So the thought is this, is that you just, what was it you just said? 'Cause I lost my thought.
No, it's okay. So we're talking about managing conflict, and our first one is soften startups.
Okay. All right. A lot of times when either spouse, male or female, come home from work, is that a good time to start a serious conversation?
Oh, no. Oh, no.
Yeah.
That is definitely something that we talk a lot about in marriage counseling, is giving your partner that time to wind down.
Right.
Especially because we work with a lot of soldiers. Their
Right.
whole day from PT till sundown because they're really never off duty.
Right.
I mean, technically, you're never off duty as a soldier.
No.
And so
Yeah.
just giving them that moment that they came home to kind of wind down,
Right.
decompress,
Right.
and get out of work mode and into
Right.
family home mode.
Right. So let's take ourselves out of the military context.
Yeah.
Even in corporate world, if we're so driven by our job and our identity in our job, we're never really off of work sometimes either, are we?
Yeah, that's a good point.
That happens with pastors.
Yeah.
Pastors are never off.
Yeah.
That happens with counselors. I mean, when you see 8 or 9 folks in a day and you go home, you don't want to talk to anyone.
That is the truth.
Trust
Yes.
me.
Oh,
And,
yes.
Yeah.
No, I can relate entirely.
Maribel, are you hearing me?
No, I completely agree. I know when I used to work 12-hour shifts as a therapist, and at the end of my 12-hour shift, I didn't want to hear anybody. I just wanted to go running. That was my thing. I would go running 2 miles,
Right.
and then kind of decompress with my run, and then I'd be like, okay, I'm better. I'm back
Yes.
into mom mode.
Yes. Wow.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But
So how do we manage conflict?
So another one is accepting the influence. So accepting, we talked about it a little bit before, accepting what your other partner's bringing to the table, whether it's experience, whether it's just influence of what they like, what they don't like. Just being able to accept somebody else's input sometimes can be even just that difficult for somebody. Like we said, sometimes accepting other people's input that doesn't come from yourself can be very difficult to accept.
Right.
And a lot of times when you have those repairs that you're attempting to do, you might not get the feedback that you want back. It might not be
Right.
reciprocated from your partner. They
Right.
might stonewall you. They might
Right.
ignore you.
Right.
They might not come back with a compliment that's equivalent to yours. So if you're doing a soft startup, like, hey, hon, I really want to tell you, that I really appreciate what you did,
Right.
and then you come back with, yeah, well, you never take out the trash.
Okay.
That's a harsh comeback, and so
Right.
we got to be careful with how we're feeling and our emotions when we're
Right.
doing these conflict, the management of your issues. Is as you're dealing with it, you have to keep in mind that your partner is going to have ideas too, and we have to accept them, and that's okay. But that's part of the managing of your conflict is accepting your partner's influence.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was thinking about accepting the influence, and that's hard for some people.
Oh yeah,
It's hard. It's hard for some women. That's hard for some men.
yeah,
It just depends. A lot of it has to do with how we were raised, whether or not we had a voice in our childhood,
yeah.
and we want our voice now. I mean, there's a lot of factors involved in accepting the influence of the other.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah.
And the other part that is whether or not you're accepting that influence. So the biggest part of this whole scenario is not so much the fact that you're having the conversation, but whether or not your partner is accepting it, is receiving it. Because remember, it's a two-sided conversation. If you're doing your part, it's a two-sided part. Your partner has to be doing their part too. So
Right.
accepting the influence, commenting back in a nice, soft way, giving more, input, but in a way that is constructive rather than damaging to the relationship.
What do you mean by nice, soft way?
The nice and soft startups. So something that's either constructive, that's going to help with the conversation, or destructive, which is going to put your partner in the defensive.
So a soft way doesn't necessarily mean, it can mean, but not necessarily how soft your voice is.
No, definitely not. But you definitely want to keep your tone in mind.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because a lot of people don't realize that your tone actually gives us a lot of interpretation of what you actually mean.
Right.
And so, yeah, your tone is definitely a different thing that you need to keep in mind on.
Uh-huh.
But another part is the de-escalation and the self-soothing. So this is something that a lot of, especially our young couples, struggle with, is taking those breaks, those necessary breaks in the middle of a conversation.
Right.
A lot of times we have our couples that maybe they were not raised with their parents taking a break. Maybe they were used to their parents arguing till the very end.
Right.
But breaks are so vital, especially
Right.
nowadays. We know that when we get escalated,
Mm-hmm.
our brain is not there to listen. It's not there to compromise. It's not there to understand. It's there to defend.
Right.
And so we need to de-escalate so that our partner is not in the defensive, but is more in the understanding and, hey, I can accept your influence. I'm actually listening. They might
Right.
not agree, but that's okay. Because remember, the whole point is that your partner is receiving the message.
Right. So taking a break.
Taking a break, yes.
Yeah.
And that's very important.
All right.
And then the last one for managing our behavior is compromising. So finding that common ground, finding that area that your beliefs or your values overlay, so that you both can live with it. So it's not a matter of, oh, he gets his way all the time. It's a matter of finding that middle ground, finding that common place where you both can be happy, at least happy enough to move on.
Right.
Because like I said in the beginning, there are those solvable problems and then there's those perpetual problems.
Right.
Those perpetual problems are about 69% of all couples problems are perpetual, which means they're never going to go away.
Yeah.
But we have to find a way to live with them together.
Wow.
In a respectful way. Not in a way that we're going to throw it in our partner's face, like, oh, remember what I did for you, remember what I did for you.
Right.
Not that way, in a respectful way that, okay, I might not agree with you,
Right.
but I respect you enough to let that be okay.
Right. Yeah, perpetual way. I'm thinking some common disagreements in the household.
Yeah.
It might be decoration type. It might be, what color we're going to paint the walls.
Yeah.
It might be, I'm going to use a real life example.
Yeah.
I just found out that, we bought the house about less than 2 years ago, and the lighting, chandeliers and stuff, it's okay, but I never thought of them as kind of oldish.
Okay.
20 years old.
Yeah.
And then our lovely neighbor has given us some chandeliers to replace some that we have,
Oh, nice.
and they're old. They
Oh.
match what we already have. And I thought to myself, I'm not really sure I like the older theme
Yeah.
motif.
Yeah.
I would like more modern. So I
Yeah.
had to tell my wife, I had to tell her, look, I like the more modern look.
Yeah.
So both my wife and I'm being honest, and I don't
Yeah.
know if she'll probably listen to this. We have this kind of perpetual way of looking at life.
Yeah.
In a way, she looks at it one way, I look at it another way,
Yeah.
and we have to compromise. We have to figure it out after 36 years of marriage. Compromise.
Yeah.
Take a break, talk about it some more, especially in nice, soft ways.
Yeah.
Which is kind of hard for two
No,
firstborns.
you're perfectly right though, and having those conversations, you hit the nail on the head.
Right.
That's exactly what is most important, is having those conversations.
Right.
And if you aren't used to having those conversations, like we tell our young new couples or
Right.
older couples that just are struggling with conversations,
Right.
is to have a conversation with open-ended questions.
Right.
Learn more about your partner. Ask why they value certain things. Ask why certain things are the way they are. Was your mom like that? Ask about their past. Ask about their value system. Where did it come from?
Right.
Why are those things that your partner and you are butting heads about, why are those things so important to your partner? Sometimes just asking why can open up the window to go, oh, well, if I knew that it meant that much to you, I would be fine with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think accepting
Yes.
the reasoning behind their
Yes.
thinking.
That's a good one. Yeah.
Accepting the reasoning behind
Yeah.
their thinking, even though you might have different reasoning.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
In a respectful way. Yeah. No, that's exactly right.
I'm afraid I'm going to lose any future conversations with my wife, but
It's okay.
I might have to
You're a
accept
good
it.
guy. It's
Yeah.
okay. She loves you.
Yeah.
But one of the biggest things was that I remember reading was says it's not about winning, it's about understanding.
It's
Because
not about winning,
Yeah.
but understanding.
Because a lot of times when we're in arguments, what's it about? Who's going to win?
Yeah.
Who's going to win that argument?
What did I just talk about?
Yeah,
I think
exactly.
I'm going to lose.
Exactly. But it's not
Yeah.
a matter of winning. It's a
Yeah.
matter of understanding. Why is that so important to your partner?
Yeah.
And then finding, again, that common ground between the both of you that go, okay, you know what? I might not like the chandeliers, but you know what? Maybe we can find a chandelier that, we both like. It'll be my favorite color and your favorite style. Finding that common
As
ground.
long as it's modern, I don't care. Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
But yeah, so those are the ways to repair it, and that is level 5 of John Gottman's Sound Relationship House.
Well, today you've joined us on the journey, and we talk again with Miss Barbosa about John Gottman's level 5.
Yeah.
And we appreciate you visiting with us on the journey. Please follow us on the journey, or what's the word I'm looking for? Subscribe to the Journey podcast.
Like, subscribe.
Yeah, like and subscribe to the Journey podcast. We appreciate you being with us. We'll see you next time.